You see, what we're actually trying to do here is we're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day at work. So, if you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Office Space was a movie written and directed by Mike Judge. It was released in 1999, which, to the chagrin of some, was before I had started middle school. The movie centers on Ron Livingston as Pete Gibbons, an overworked, underpaid, tired, exhausted, underappreciated, and generally bossed around employee who has an arguably pretty good job despite the backbreaking emotional labor that he must experience.
I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it.
Which makes him a pretty relatable character for anyone who's had to try to win a scholarship for college or doesn't have healthcare right now and is working as a waiter. He goes to a hypnotist and tries to be broken into loving Big Brother.
So I was sitting in my cubicle today and I realized ever since I started working, every single day of my life has been worse than the day before it. So that means that every single day that you see me, that's on the worst day of my life.
What about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
Yeah.
Wow, that's messed up.
Or rather, into not caring about the work at all. The hypnotist dies, and then our protagonist is given the absolute blissful joy of not caring about his job and skipping an entire day of work. Through several events that I won't get into, Pete becomes privy to the fact that his 2 friends and co-workers, Michael Bolton and Samir Nanahinjar, are going to be fired in the next series of layoffs, and that he will be promoted. The 3 decide to steal from the company instead as a radical act of quality praxis against a large corporation. Sidebar, Nahina Najar is essentially only there to add some melanin to the group and be the butt of a few jokes about his name and his inability to speak to women. Bolton is here to be the biggest loser of the bunch, and Pete is here to be the normal person for the audience, the Luke Skywalker to our story, if you will. There's also, of course, the fan-favorite character, Milton.
F C
Hi, Milton.
But
What's happening?
I didn't receive my paycheck this week.
You're gonna have to talk to payroll about that.
I did, and they said...
Milton, we're gonna need to go ahead and move you downstairs into storage B.
No, I was told I could
have some
not.
new people
Yep.
coming in,
No.
and we need all the
There's-
space.
Played by Stephen Root, Milton is everything that embodies what we may feel about ourselves at work. Maybe you are Milton. Maybe your coworker is Milton. But everyone understands the life of Milton, abused by superiors who know that he will not do anything, easily ridiculed, and eventually willing to burn it all down. This movie is like Sorry to Bother You, but for moderate white people. The film is hilarious, the acting is solid, the story, while meandering in the middle a bit, is fantastic outside of the intensely awkward romance bits with Jennifer Aniston. Aniston is not bad in this movie, it's just that the scripts give her an awkward situation to deal with. She doesn't know what kind of movie she's in, and I'm sure that's more on the direction than anything. This was Judge's first live-action film, and the film centers on 3 office coworkers because they're what Judge knew best at the time. Straight men who just want to not work anymore. Justifiably so, the workplace is terrible and the pay is likely not enough for them to feel really satisfied, although the apartments they apparently live in are very comfortable looking. This said, their job, as described by Pete, is mindless, changing the way dates are set up in the bank computers to fix the Y2K bug, and this task is made even more meaningless in the context of 2019, 20 years after this movie came out. The easiest way to put this, the film is basically Bernie Bros. The movie. There is sexism present, but it's not really mean-spirited sexism so much as just loser sexism. The anti-capitalism is present, but the grounds for justification and praxis are just another form of living within capitalism. In fact, besides Pete, the other two are completely content within their jobs at the company and only join Pete after he tells them the true lack of value that the company has placed them in.
Samir and I are the best programmers they got at that place. And you haven't been showing up and you get to keep your job.
Actually, I'm being promoted.
What?
I know, Michael. It's completely unfair.
In this moment, the film touches on an interesting aspect about those that must participate in capitalism. Michael Bolton goes to the bar to suffer and contemplate being fired. Nahina Najjar is upset, but being foreign is already knowledgeable to the lack of value his human life has and accepts it more quickly. The emotional effect of being determined as worthless by the company leads the characters to move and act more emotionally and therefore decide to rob the company. This goes unquestioned by the movie until the plan is put into the action and more characters are made aware of it. The audience too accepts this motive because at the beginning of the film, we entirely only see the raw pounding of authoritarian bureaucracy as it hits your eardrums and numbs you to the plight of these employees. Even more so than all three of the central cast, Joanna, Jennifer Aniston's character, works a much worse job than Pete and initially appears far less fed up with her job. She works as a waiter at a terrible restaurant based on some restaurant chain my generation is participating in killing. The job is dehumanizing, humiliating, and to make matters worse, she has a coworker that is a class traitor.
Well, like Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flair on today, okay? A terrific smile.
Okay, so you want me to wear more?
Her coworker continually devalues her labor by going above and beyond the requirements of the job, thus engaging in class warfare. Joanna is pressured by her boss because of her inability to be as efficient and likely cheap as her valueless coworker. But when told the plan by Pete, she immediately declares it to be wrong. But why? Is she so beaten down by capitalism that she simply accepts that this is how things must be, even if she has the potential to escape and focus her energy on new creative ventures? It's well known to the viewer the exact amount the boys steal from the company, and despite inflation or maybe even including it, is the amount taken from the company really a bad thing? I'm not really at liberty to say or make a judgment call here, but the film decides to cast a fairly soft judgment on the group as, lucky for them, Milton has finally decided the company treats him too much like an animal and burns the place to the ground. We can assume that this was an accident, but I want to believe that this was the final follow-through to the threats that he gave throughout the movie. Whatever the case, we are rewarded in the form of cinematic catharsis, the burning destruction of a corporate building. Here we feel at ease with Pete, who smiles as the company burns to the ground. But of course, an undisclosed amount of time later, Pete and his friend Lawrence, who is fantastic and I did not have the time to get into in this video, are working at a construction company cleaning up the mess. So what does the movie want to say? Is it critiquing the devaluation of humans under capitalism? Is it a momentary lapse in a long chain of wage slavery? In all likelihood, it is a creation deeply tied to the system it is apparently critiquing. It's known nowadays that Judge was told to rewrite the ending to the movie, and this could hold a clue to the real lack of teeth in the ending half of the film. You may notice that I said the film was apparently critiquing capitalism, and I say this because if we look at the text of the movie, it's not really doing that. Pete hates his job, but he never seems underpaid. He has a nice apartment. Yes, his boss is awful, and yes, his coworkers are annoying, but as stated earlier, he isn't in a worse job than Joanna. He's just in a shitty job. And if we listen to why he complains about the place, it comes down to a set of what I will call Judge-isms. Pete hates the office because, rightfully, he doesn't believe the workplace is a natural way for humans to live. Where Michael Bolton and Samir have genuine reasons to feel mistreated by their boss and coworkers, Pete feels more focused on the lack of humanity in his job. By the end of the movie, he seems downright excited to work at the construction company, rejecting his former coworker's offer to help him find a new job.
Making bucks, getting exercise, working outside.
Fucking A.
Fucking A.
Pete doesn't care about anti-capitalism. Pete just hated his job and needed to find a new one. If only our broader problems with capitalism could be so easily solved, and we were able to find joy in our labor. This video was made possible by my patrons, who have offered me the most amazing support that I could have ever asked for. If you want to support this channel, then please go to my Patreon at patreon.com/CuteBridge, or donate to me on Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/CuteBridge. I look forward to seeing you next time.